New tropical storm in the Indian Ocean on tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. And now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for January 15th. So we finally have our third tropical storm formation of the year so far, and it's an unnamed one at present, hasn't been picked up by the agencies yet, but we're pretty confident that it is actually a tropical storm now at this stage. The eastern system, quite surprisingly, has shown itself to become a viable tropical cyclone contender, and now is one. In the Atlantic, it's 137 days until hurricane season. Just to look around this area, massive front moving through off the US East Coast, and a little bit of attention around a potential system up there, but it shouldn't become anything significant. We'll talk about that later. In the South Pacific, a 40% chance there now over the Solomon Islands. Well, no, actually more towards Vanuatu now, moving towards the southeast. Still that 10% disturbance over the Philippines, causing more rainfall misery. And now this tropical storm, which has formed at around 80 degrees east and about 8 degrees south, so in the deep tropics there, and to its west. Now our team have given it an 80% chance of development for that other system, much larger system, towards the west, although there's not much to show for that just yet, so I am personally wondering, but still a very complicated situation down there in the southwest Indian Ocean. Both of these systems could coexist. Models are all over the place. We'll take a look at that in a short while. First though, let's take a look at some satellite imagery around the world, and you can see there some of those red zones still around the Philippines, and you can actually make out that new tropical cyclone as well. Quite a bit of red there just south of India in this large scale view, and that front off the US East Coast providing a lot of rainfall as well. Let's take a look at more satellite imagery across the Himawari 9 viewing area. This is the Western Pacific up the top there, and that disturbance which still has decent circulation. And down the bottom, Australia and the Solomon Islands towards the right hand side. And there is a cyclonic rotation with decent amounts of convection along the coast of Queensland right now as well. It's a low pressure area that we have been monitoring with one eye, although models haven't been suggesting that it would form really, but certainly looking decent when you look at this imagery towards the bottom of that picture, with that system looking pretty decent, and it's loading slowly there, so just that still image for the time being. You can see that potential system on the left hand side which hasn't been marked, just looking very fascinating, and on the right of it the other system that we're really expecting will actually become a tropical cyclone as it veers around and eventually moves southeastwards and pushes off. This is the tropical storm that we've been looking for in the southwest Indian Ocean. It's far away from any real land areas, although there's Diego Garcia there on the left hand side. You might just about make out its outline, but this storm looking decent, huge amounts of convection near the center and really blowing up and chugging away in the later part of today, overnight hours local time, and it's been moving gradually southwestwards. The circulation is present and it's probably got tropical storm force winds looking at the convection, so it's a system that's looking decent. How long will it last? Well, we're not really sure. It's really happened quite unexpectedly. The models had given up on it, as you're about to find out, and really who knows what might happen from here on in, although I expect it will eventually get torn apart by the influence of the developing system to its west. And here is an animated loop of that Coral Sea region now as well, so you can see exactly what's been happening there in the opening phase of today local time, as daylight crosses over that region. And still a lot of development needed for both of these systems, or either of them, and another complicated situation possibly as well the more you look at that. Sea surface temperatures, look for anything above 80 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 26, 27 degrees Celsius. Haven't got a new map since yesterday, but I doubt much will have changed since then. So just looking at those temperatures there, around 27, 26 degrees across the Caribbean Sea, but there's no systems to take advantage of that. The Indian Ocean looking decent, around 27 degrees Celsius in the Arabian Sea, and piping hot in the southwest Indian Ocean, where temperatures are at least 28. Mozambique Channel, I'm sure there's a few spots of 29 or even 30 there, and in the southwest Indian Ocean proper, around 27 to 28 Celsius. The North Indian Ocean, Bay of Bengal region, 27 plus. Off the west coast of Australia, still a bit cool at those higher latitudes, but in the tropical zone it is still around 27 Celsius. Hot spot off the Northern Territory of Australia, 29 to 30 degrees at least. Also very warm off the Fijian shorelines, 28 degrees Celsius at least. And in the very low latitudes of the Western Pacific, still very warm there as well, and there is quite a bit of fuel and energy if there are any low latitude systems that could form early in this year in the Western Pacific. So I would keep your guard up for that as well, especially when we look at the sea surface temperature anomalies. The orange zones, that's above average. The blue zones below. West Pacific definitely up there. The Australian region still a little bit below, particularly the further west, but the Coral Sea looking warm off Fiji, very warm, and the La Nina looks like it's still just about there in the central areas, but it has been deteriorating quite rapidly now in the last few weeks, and I'm pretty sure now that it will be gone by summer. That would be Northern Hemisphere summer, of course. Oceanic heat content in the Southern Hemisphere looks like this right now. Very warm amounts near the Solomon Islands, down to Fiji and Vanuatu. And in the Western Pacific, it's actually building still, just to the south of Guam, getting some really more widespread orange zones there now, which is really fascinating from my point of view at least. I'm wondering what's causing that, but certainly increasing when I don't think it should be. This is what the GFS has for this system that you might have seen some people talking about. It certainly is an impressive looking thing that has quite a bulk of wind there, especially on the eastern side when it first curved inwards, forms off the outer banks of North Carolina, moves eastwards and then northwards towards the Atlantic Canada coastline, and looks like it smacks northern Nova Scotia with hurricane force winds. But I would say there is a less than 5% chance that it will be subtropical or tropical. Southwest Indian Ocean, take a look at the GFS model here. No sign of this tropical storm that's just formed, but there is that western system that ends up becoming a very, very broad tropical cyclone there, tropical storm force winds. You can see the trace of that current tropical storm, the right hand side there in those initial frames, and it does get swept in sort of towards that big system that moves into Madagascar. Good news there is that the intensity projections have really dropped. Only a tropical storm landfall there, but you'll see in a minute that the rainfall is something to be concerned about. Here's the South Pacific system. Look at that, really blows up when it gets going around the 18th, and then it swivels down towards the southwest. Category 3 at least there near its peak, just as it passes in between Vanuatu and New Caledonia. There it is again, forming on the 17th, so that's 2 days away. Certainly potential there, probably a category 4 actually, the more I look at that, and then passing southeastwards. Alright, well, take a look at Madagascar, and this is a stark forecast from the GFS model at the latest update. If that scenario comes to pass, the next 7 days, even though there won't be any hurricane force winds if the GFS is correct, take a look at some of this rainfall encroaching over the area. Those dark colours there really going beyond the normal scale, getting extremely high rain amounts, 50 inches. Now that is an extraordinary amount. I'm trying to figure out how much that is in millimeters, but whilst we go along, 20 inches for some other areas there, quite widespread, so extremely dangerous rainfall conditions there. I've completely lost my bearings on what that actually means for millimeters. I'll try and remember in a moment. Here is the rest of the Southwest Indian Ocean forecast, and you can see off the eastern side of that storm as it breaks up, as it moves over Madagascar, there's that second system again, and it's another broad one. And then the first system really starts to strengthen again, reaches hurricane equivalent winds, but it's away from Madagascar. It's as it's moving through Mauritius and Réunion, and certainly a very large system. If it does have an eye at that point, it's probably covering Mauritius there, actually, almost to a T. And now taking a look at the South Pacific Ocean, you can see that system moving off then, that strong one, and then three more possibly behind it. You can see they're moving across the same region. A lot of uncertainty regarding that, no doubt, as we get towards the medium range, with three different systems splitting off in different directions. That could be a feedback loop thing on the GFS model that we sometimes see, or it might just be just that uncertainty. And then that third system off the Australian coast has been quite consistent with that one, actually. Well, that's all the serious stuff done. You can scan the barcode and take a look at the Force 13 merch store with all of our usual products, as well as our full season and individual storm animations right there for you as well. And are still waiting for Hone t-shirt, because we certainly are still waiting. Looking back to the Southwest Indian Ocean, those two storms continue to move off and down into the graveyard of the extratropical zones, and look at that, really actually takes its peak there as it enters those higher latitudes, that second system that forms first. And just done those calculations on the rainfall estimates, over 1200 millimeters possible for some of those parts of Madagascar along the coast there. I think that area was Antalaha, but certainly the northern region there could be primed for exceptionally high rainfall, which would cause extreme impacts. Finally, looking at the Australian region, there's that system moving across the Gulf of Carpentaria now, and continues through the rest of Australia, and actually indications now that it might reform at the other end in the western region. And then one or two other systems, once again, another one in the Coral Sea, maybe a non-tropical low that might just get subtropical characteristics there at those high latitudes towards New Zealand. But certainly a tumultuous period in the South Pacific Ocean is what's being touted by the model there. And for general chat and tropical weather chat at any time of year, and for weather around the world, you can join our Discord server, discord.gg/force13, and discuss everything and anything related to weather and tropics. Well then, it was on January the 15th, 2018 that we were covering the progress of Cyclone Begito, which was a Category 3 and peaking on this day. It happened in the second half of the day, where it really rapidly intensified, and there's an image of it near its peak intensity. It was the only system that was active on this day. I think, if I remember rightly, there was another system that had just died off, and I can't remember where that actually was now, but Begito was clearly the star of the show, and I remember doing lots and lots of updates on that one, as it seriously threatened Mauritius, and they got away with that one. Well, back to this year, and the next name, the first name on the Atlantic naming list, is Arlene. In the Eastern Pacific, it's Adrian, and in the Central Pacific, of course, we are still waiting for Hone. It's now into our fourth year almost. In the Western Pacific, Sanvu is next up. In the North Indian Ocean, it's Mocha. This unnamed tropical storm is now the third to form this year, if you count Ellie Part 2, when it emerged. Well, it didn't actually emerge, it re-intensified to tropical storm status over Australia. The next name there is Freddy. In the Southwest Indian Ocean, it's Chinizo, and in the South Pacific, it's Irene. That's all from tonight's Tropical Weather Bulletin. For me personally, I'll be back on the 18th, and I'm sure our team will keep you covered.